Good evening. Tonight we bring you a story that is already sending shockwaves through the corridors of power, the world's financial centers, and the lives of everyday people. What happened today will be studied in law schools, debated in boardrooms, and felt in households across the globe for years to come. Today, January 16, 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, declaring his use of emergency powers to reshape trade policy unconstitutional. In a landmark decision, the justices ruled that the president had overstepped his authority, setting off a chain reaction that is reverberating far beyond Washington. This isn't just a legal story. It's about the price of your groceries, the security of your job, and the future of global commerce. For millions of Americans, the impact will be immediate and personal, affecting everything from the cost of imported goods to the stability of their employment. The decision triggered chaos in financial markets and a political firestorm in Washington, leaving businesses worldwide scrambling. Stocks tumbled as investors tried to make sense of the new reality, while lawmakers on both sides of the aisle rushed to respond to the sudden upheaval. The tariffs, which once added over 30% to some imports, are now gone with a single ruling. Ports and customs officials are racing to adapt, as shipments that were once subject to steep fees are suddenly cleared for entry at pre-tariff prices. Will billions in collected tariffs be refunded? Will prices drop? And how will a defiant White House respond? These are just a few of the urgent questions now facing policymakers, businesses, and consumers alike. The answers could reshape the economic landscape for years to come. The ruling redraws the lines of power in Washington, setting a precedent that will constrain future presidents and force a rethinking of America's role in the global economy. Legal scholars are already calling it one of the most significant Supreme Court decisions of the decade, with implications that reach far beyond trade policy. From Tokyo boardrooms to Midwest farms, reactions are swift. Some celebrate, others brace for uncertainty. International partners are reassessing their strategies, while American workers and business owners wonder what tomorrow will bring. The world is watching and the stakes could not be higher. As experts debate the long-term effects, families and entrepreneurs are left to navigate a rapidly changing landscape. Will this ruling usher in a new era of global cooperation or spark fresh tensions on the world stage? Only time will tell. Stay with us as we break down every angle of this historic story, bringing you expert analysis, on-the-ground reports, and the voices of those most affected by this unprecedented economic earthquake. The tariff story began last April, when President Trump, citing a national emergency over the trade deficit, imposed sweeping import duties, some as high as 50%. The administration argued these tariffs would revive American manufacturing and protect national security, using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act as legal cover. The White House also targeted specific countries, linking trade policy to the fight against fentanyl. The goal: make imports pricier, boost domestic industry, and force better trade deals. But opposition was fierce. Importers, retailers, and manufacturers warned the tariffs were attacks on Americans, threatening jobs and investment. Economists cautioned that a broad trade war could disrupt global markets and harm the U.S. economy. The stage was set for a monumental legal and political battle. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Legal challenges erupted almost immediately as the president's sweeping tariff policy sent shockwaves through the nation's legal and political systems. Lawsuits were filed in federal courts across the country, with plaintiffs ranging from multinational corporations to small business owners and even state governments. The courthouse steps became a battleground, with reporters, protesters, and legal teams all vying for attention as the stakes grew higher by the day. Business groups quickly organized press conferences, arguing the president had overstepped his authority and warning of the economic chaos that could follow. Executives and trade associations voiced their concerns, emphasizing the potential for job losses and supply chain disruptions. Their central claim was rooted in the Constitution, which they argued gives Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to regulate trade and impose tariffs. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill debated fiercely, with some defending the president's actions as necessary for national security, while others decried what they saw as an abuse of executive power. In August 2025, after months of legal wrangling, a federal appeals court issued a landmark ruling. The court found that most of the tariffs were unlawful, concluding that a trade deficit alone did not meet the emergency standard required by law. The decision sent ripples through the business community and political establishment alike. The administration, refusing to back down, immediately appealed the decision. The case quickly made its way to the Supreme Court, which agreed to hear arguments on the limits of presidential power, in matters of trade. During oral arguments, justices from both sides of the ideological spectrum pressed the lawyers with tough questions. They asked whether any economic problem could truly be declared a national emergency, and what limits, if any, should exist on executive authority. As the legal drama unfolded, the nation and the world waited anxiously. Uncertainty gripped the global economy, with stock markets fluctuating wildly and investors bracing for the court's decision. Businesses large and small were left in limbo, unsure whether to keep paying massive duties or to prepare for a sudden change in policy. Many worried about layoffs, lost contracts, and the long-term impact on American competitiveness. Meanwhile, the White House launched a full-scale public pressure campaign, warning of dire consequences if the court ruled against the tariffs. Administration officials appeared on television, framing the case as a test of national sovereignty and economic security. The legal battle reached its apex as the Supreme Court prepared to issue a decision that would not only determine the fate of the tariffs, but also redefine the boundaries of presidential power for years to come. This morning, in a landmark decision that will be studied for years to come, the Supreme Court, by a 6-3 majority, struck down the controversial Liberation Day tariffs. The ruling sent shockwaves through Washington and across the nation, as the justices delivered a clear message about the limits of presidential authority. The majority opinion was a direct and forceful rebuke of the administration's use of emergency powers to impose sweeping trade restrictions. The court declared that such actions represented a fundamental encroachment on Congress's constitutional authority to regulate commerce, reaffirming the separation of powers at the heart of American democracy. In their written opinion, the justices made it clear: the executive branch cannot use trade deficits as a blanket justification for emergency action. This decision effectively closes the door on a legal strategy that has been used to bypass legislative oversight for years. President Trump responded with visible fury, denouncing the ruling in a fiery press conference. He vowed to continue fighting, calling the decision a betrayal of American workers and accusing the court of undermining national security and economic independence. The ruling has immediate and far-reaching financial consequences. It opens the door for thousands of companies to claim refunds on billions of dollars paid in tariffs, creating a massive and unexpected liability for the U.S. Treasury. Economists warn this could have ripple effects throughout the economy. For Trump's America First agenda, it's a major defeat, one that not only halts a signature policy, but also sets a powerful new legal precedent, sharply limiting executive authority in matters of trade and national economic policy. With the court's decision, Congress is now thrust back into the center of the trade policy debate. Lawmakers from both parties are scrambling to respond, with some calling for new legislation to clarify the limits of executive power. The political fallout is just beginning. Reporters, analysts, and protesters have all descended on Washington as the nation grapples with the implications of this historic ruling. The balance of power in Washington has shifted, and the next chapter in America's ongoing struggle over executive authority is about to unfold. The Supreme Court's decision sent global markets into a frenzy. Stocks initially surged on hopes of an end to the trade war, but optimism quickly turned to confusion as the White House vowed to find new ways to impose tariffs. The Dow swung wildly, reflecting fears of a prolonged battle between the president and the courts. Bond markets tumbled as investors worried about the government refunding up to $200 billion in tariffs, raising questions about fiscal health. Interest rates spiked, fueling further panic and threatening economic growth. The dollar weakened, then rebounded, while currencies of former tariff targets strengthened. The chaos on trading floors reflected the profound uncertainty unleashed by the ruling. The simple narrative, "tariffs are gone," was replaced by a more complicated reality. No one knows what happens next. The markets are bracing for more volatility. The clear winners are American companies that paid steep tariffs. They now stand to receive massive refunds, potentially over $100 billion. This windfall could mean lower prices, more jobs, or shareholder rewards. But domestic industries once protected by tariffs, like steel and aluminum, now face renewed competition from cheaper imports. For them, the future is uncertain and potentially grim. For consumers, the end of tariffs should mean lower prices on everything from electronics to groceries, easing inflation. Yet, it's unclear how quickly or fully those savings will reach shoppers. Higher interest rates could offset some benefits, making loans and mortgages more expensive. The end of the trade war could also spark new investment and restore confidence in global supply chains. The economic landscape has been fundamentally redrawn. The Trump administration wasted no time unveiling its Game 2 plan, vowing not to abandon tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed the White House will pivot to other legal tools, like Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, to reimpose targeted tariffs. This legal whack-a-mole could create a patchwork of new duties, prolonging uncertainty for businesses. Instead of clarity, companies now face a more complex and unpredictable trade landscape. The administration's defiance escalates its conflict with the courts and tests the limits of the rule of law. Congress faces pressure to clarify trade laws, but deep divisions make consensus unlikely. The nation's trade policy remains in limbo. The battle is far from over. Economists and legal experts agree. The short-term future is defined by turmoil. The Supreme Court's ruling is a landmark pushback against expanding executive power, but the administration's pivot to other statutes keeps the fight alive. Businesses are advised to prepare for sustained instability. Tariffs may return in new forms. The dream of a quick return to pre-2025 normalcy is over. Radical uncertainty discourages investment and hiring, dragging on economic growth. Many believe this moment could force a national conversation about the future of American trade policy. The challenge address unfair competition and national security without resorting to blunt, disruptive tariffs. The search for a new path is more urgent than ever. The Supreme Court's decision didn't end the trade war. It opened a new front. The court defended constitutional order, but the administration's defiance ensures ongoing chaos. The American economy is caught between a landmark legal ruling and a determined executive branch. Volatility in markets reflects this fundamental conflict. The era of unpredictable, unilateral trade policy isn't over. It's entering a more complex phase. This moment will shape prices, jobs, and America's global role for years to come. Will the U.S. be seen as a reliable partner or an unpredictable actor? The answer depends on the battles ahead. The stakes for families, businesses, and America's standing couldn't be higher. The only certainty: the path forward will be anything but smooth.